I want to welcome you to the AAHPO Town Hall. For some of you, this is your first time with us, and I want to thank you. The purpose of these town halls is really to share some facts and evidence about the public health aspects and the scientific aspects of COVID-19, so we can all make better decisions for ourselves, our families, organizations, and businesses. And this evening, I want to go out and give a special thank you to the Armenian Bar Association, particularly its co-chair, Sudan Israelian, as well as Chris Parnagian, for introducing us to Scott Honigian, our featured speaker this evening, who will talk about the COVID in the workplace. And Sudan will also be joining us and talking with us about the Pan-American Council for the Eastern United States. It's been another amazing week in this COVID pandemic. Things change all the time, and we're going to hear about the scientific facts in a few moments. The big news today is all about the vaccine. When we started, we had no idea what COVID-19 was. Our scientists, including Dr. Kojaglanyan and Dr. Belazikian, who are with us tonight, have contributed to the strong body of literature that has given us more information and facts about the coronavirus. We then went to the therapeutic stage, and now we're at the vaccine stage. So I'm going to introduce Dr. John Belazikian. Dr. Belazikian has been with us from the beginning, and we very much appreciate all of his input over the years, over the year regarding COVID-19. He's the Dorothy L. and Daniel H. Professor of Medicine and Pharmacology at the Vagelos College of Physicians and Surgeons. He's Vice Chair of the Department of Medicine and International Education and Research, Chief Emeritus, Division of Endocrinology, Director Emeritus, Metabolic Bone Diseases Program at Columbia Medical Center, the founder of the Osteoporosis Treatment Project, which has done some amazing things in Armenia, and has also contributed to the worldwide body of knowledge regarding vitamin D. And we're very proud to have him as not only a board member, but a gold medal recipient. Thank you, Dr. Belazikian, for joining us this evening.
I just wanted to make a comment on an upbeat note. I want to quote from Dr. Eric Topol. Some of you may know Dr. Topol. He used to be at the Cleveland Clinic and is now at the Scripps. And Dr. Topol is actually a cardiologist, but he also is an epidemiologist and has been one of the, how shall we put him best, has been one of the great skeptics of clinical trials in this country. It's really an amazing statement. He said, "This is an easy family of viruses to take down," unquote. And the article has to do with the new frontier. Vaccine against COVID-19 or the COVID SARS-2 virus, but to develop a family of antibodies that will take the whole family down. And there are some very interesting initiatives in which this may actually be possible. One has to do with making a soup of the various variants of the spike protein that all of these COVID viruses share, and put them in a soup, and then the body, whether it be an animal or the human, will make a melange of such antibodies to hit all of them, or actually more than all of them. Some of these studies have shown that there is an overlap between the specific spike proteins that have been injected into the animal and related spike proteins from related coronaviruses. The other initiative is not to take the spike protein, but to take the viral shell, which is shared by most of the viruses, and inject them. And then you get a panoply of antibodies that will basically interact with any of the COVID viruses. The reason why this is really important is that the next COVID virus, or coronavirus, I should say, is around the corner. It's going to happen. It happened in 2002 for the first time. It happened in 2012 for the second time. It happened in 2019 for the third time, and it's going to happen. We don't know when, but it's going to happen again. And we need to be prepared and work now to guard against the next epidemic or pandemic. So I think this is really new, hot stuff, and it leaves us with some optimism that the world of biomedical science may be moving faster than the virus itself. But I would like to ask Celine your take on these comments.
I concur 100% with what Dr. Bilezikian just said, and hopefully we will have, as usual, enough funding to do all this biomedical research that we need to do to keep ahead of the virus as we need to, like Dr. Bilezikian said. And in the real world, that already is translating into treatments and vaccine immunology. So for example, we do know that right now, if we're going to treat someone with monoclonal antibodies, we do know that using a cocktail is better than using one, because this virus, which to be honest, none of us really expected, has actually thrown us a lot of curveballs, because it is able to leap, as we say in virology. It's called these variants, they are called evolutionary leaps. So they are mutating in a way that really is surprising us, and therefore we need to be ready for all kinds of permutations that the virus is throwing at us. I think the message though that I want to send is both good news and bad news. So the bad news is that until now, we have not been sequencing. What we do is, let's say somebody has a virus, the way you know this is the UK variant or the South African variant is not something you know by testing in a commercial lab. They have to go to certain labs where they actually sequence one by one the virus, and that's how they know that a new variant emerged. So far in the past year, I think the US was overwhelmed with so much, or I don't know why, we weren't doing enough sequencing of the viruses to even know if we have variants of our own that we just don't know about, or whether the variants, the UK, the South Africa, are spreading faster than we think, because we're just not sequencing enough people. So I think the Biden administration this week committed a certain substantial amount of money for that purpose only. And again, that's important because we need to be ahead of the virus and know when it changes, and when it changes, be ready for those changes rather than only find out later. So that's the kind of bad news that hopefully will turn good. The good news, though, is that in general in the country, like Larry mentioned, the COVID-19 numbers are downtrending right now. So we would think that if the UK variant or the South African variant, which have taken over in their countries of origin right now. So the UK, for example, the majority of people are infected with the UK variant. South Africa, majority is South African variant. So if those variants were very rampant here, we would have seen, I think, the numbers go up rather than go down. So if anything, hopefully everybody is still doing enough distancing and masking that at least so far we haven't seen a major uptick. But again, we need to remember that these variants are already here, and we need to continue doing these measures.
It really is a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who I just met for the first time in the last week or so. He's the chair of the Labor and Employment Group. And in that position, he's routinely working with some of the most senior executives on their negotiating and preparing their employment contracts. Having said that, he can relate to the common person. Growing up, he shadowed his father, who was a solo attorney for 40 years, serving the community, going to traffic court, and he can relate to the common problems that we all have. And in fact, when you read reviews, they say one of his major attributes is not his intellectual acumen with which he approaches the law, but his pragmatic advice that he helps steer his clients through when dealing with complex problems. He appears in state and federal courts and also litigates in the various federal and state agencies. Chambers USA has ranked him as one of America's leading lawyers for business clients. and Thomas Reuters, one of the best lawyers in America. Since 2007, every year he's been nominated in the field of employment law and litigation.
For almost 30 years, I have been predominantly representing employers, businesses, small ones, medium-sized ones, and big ones. Beginning in March, I became more of a student than I had been in 20 years because the state, the federal, local governments were all passing laws, issuing executive orders, doing everything they could think of to try and deal with COVID, even though they had no idea what COVID was. All right, we're going to shut everything down. No one can go to work. You have to take your temperature before you can go in this building. It was one thing after another. I'd much rather respond to anything that anyone wants to know about how the law impacts related to COVID. Some of you are employers, some of you are employees, some of you are both. We're sort of operating without a safety net because usually in the law, we have precedent that we do legal research and we say, okay, historically, this is how we deal with this situation. We don't have any precedent for this. We're sort of making decisions on the basis of how do we protect our employees? How do we protect our business? How do we protect ourselves and continue to move forward? Should every employer mandate that their employees take the vaccine before they come back? If you think about it in a vacuum, you say yes. In December, the EEOC, does everybody know what the EEOC is? The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It's a branch of the federal government which enforces the laws against discrimination. Said it was okay to mandate the vaccine. But someone who has a firmly held religious belief which prohibits them from having the vaccine, the employer has an obligation to accommodate them. Someone who has a medical condition which the vaccine would exacerbate or put them at risk doesn't have to get the vaccine. Then we also have, and I talked to Larry earlier today, I did not know about this. Less than 100 years ago in the United States of America, the drug companies and the government used vaccines on blacks and others without their consent or advising them of the risks in order to test them. So there are particular groups in this country who are very reluctant, for good reason, to do what they're told. My advice to my clients is not to make it mandatory. It's to encourage it, to incentivize it, to make it mandatory. No, you can't tell me what to do. But if you present with Soline's assistance, the data on why it's best for you and everyone around you, that's a good thing.
Following up on that concept of if I was working and I got COVID, first, I think it's hard to prove I got it at the workplace, but if I work in a hospital in an intensive care unit setting or anywhere in a hospital and I catch COVID, and I'm one of those long haulers, meaning I have severe complications that go on and make me unable to work, what happens to me? Where do I go? Will I lose my job?
California was first. New Jersey was second. There are certain states that created a presumption that if a person goes to work and they get COVID, there's a presumption that they got it at work. And the reason they did that was that makes the person eligible for workers' compensation benefits. So that could be both salary and some additional payment in the event they're not able to work. If one of these long haul, someone who as in essence become disabled, even though they are no longer suffering from COVID, now we're out of the COVID statutory framework, and now we're looking at someone who has a disability that the employer has an obligation to engage in all terms of art, the interactive process, to determine whether that person can perform their essential job functions with some reasonable accommodation. That could be work from home, it could be a changed job schedule. But at the same time, employers have no obligation to pay someone who cannot work. So, the social safety net has been passed from the government to employers to a certain extent, but not permanently.
Lawyers and physicians are like oil and water. Healthcare providers and lawyers are an unlikely couple. But when we're Armenian, that supersedes all of our other interests, and we unite. And I really want to go out of my way to thank Sudan Israelian and Chris Pernagin for introducing us to Scott. But I'd like to thank Sudan for always trying to reach out to find common ground that we can work together. I have to thank the Armenian community for its vibrancy in bringing people together. Sudan and I met at a mentoring event, which, by the way, is going to most likely take place virtually this year. It's an event to help promote the interest of our young students who want to join the various professions. And that's how Sudan and I first met. And periodically I'll get a call, Larry, how about we do this together? We do that together. And that need for bringing people together is really embodied in his new concept he's going to share with us tonight about the Pan-Armenian Council of the Eastern United States. Sudan was born and raised in Yerevan. His father was a sculptor. He was supposed to go into sculpting, but found that the theater and directing theaters was going to be his passion. He changed course, came to New York, mastered the English language, graduating from New York Law School, and is now a very talented trial attorney. So talented that 10 of his verdicts are listed in the top jury verdicts in New York State, 2 in the nation. Really an amazing accomplishment. He's in a lot of organizations, but he's not there in name only. He's sits on chairs in both the Queens and Brooklyn Bar Association. He also is the chair of 2 standing committees, one for the New York State Bar Association and one for the New York Trial Lawyers Association. So, Sudan, I don't know how you do it between all your cases, all the great verdicts that you've achieved, all the organizations you're partaking in, and then generously sharing your talents as vice chair of the Armenian Bar Association of the tri-state area. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we can't wait to hear more about your idea or the group's idea of the Pan-Armenian Council of the Eastern United States.
I do appreciate this opportunity. I don't know how I do it. I really don't. I just don't know how to say no. And when the idea comes to my mind, I'd rather do it than talk about it. I like working with Larry. Armenian American Health Care Professionals Association is very near and dear to my heart and to all of us in the Armenian community, because they do tremendous amount of work and has an amazing leadership. And it's just pleasure to see and hear your activities. And as Larry explained, we have over time have done programs together, and this came out of impulses, our natural impulses. I sometimes reached out to him, he sometimes reached out to me, and this is not only with Larry and your organization, but we have also collaborated with Hovanes is here, Martirosyan from Armenian Engineers. We have very good relationship with our scientists and engineers. and I'm sure with other organizations. It's an Armenian thing. We just like to work together. We just cannot get enough of each other sometimes. So the idea is to establish a pan-Armenian council of the Eastern United States. It's not my idea. This idea has been around in various forms. I know Scott talked about that. I know Armen Morian has discussed that, and young professionals. I see Grant Petrosian is on the call here too. He is working with the young professionals organizing of something of similar nature. And so the idea has been around a long time. Indeed, there is a similar organization or an identical organization on the West Coast. It's been established a couple of years back. It's been established, the genesis of the Pan-Armenian Council of Western United States is, if you remember a couple of years back, we heard there was a graffiti in an Armenian school by some kind of a Turkish graffiti that defamed and they put the graffiti on the school, and that immediately spurred calls for unification, and thereby the voices of all organizations were unified, and they came together and created a Pan-Armenian Council of the Western United States, and all major organizations that are operating in the Western United States are members of the organization. That organization, basically, the leaders of that organization meet and still have met and still continue to meet on almost monthly basis, sometimes on every couple of months, every 3 months, to talk about overarching pan-Armenian issues that is beyond the reach of a particular organization, but affects all the organizations and members of the Armenian community as a whole. They have been also beyond such initiatives as organizing the march commemorating Armenian genocide that all of us hear about, bringing to the streets approximately 100 or more thousand people couple of years back. So the idea is already functioning. There is a functioning similar organization on the West Coast, and the time has come for us to put something together on the East Coast. And when we stand together shoulder by shoulder, the perception to the others, to non-Armenians, that we are stronger. Our footprint will be much larger, and our reach will be much farther. So we have that capability, and this is the opportunity for us to do that. I mean, I can talk about for a long time about why we should do that, but I guess I should answer the question, why now? And before the war, perhaps this was just a good idea, but just a great idea for us to be unified and to speak with one voice. But I believe it became a necessity after the war, and here's why. When Azeris and Turks went to war against Artsakh and Armenia, they didn't start the war only against Armenia. They knew that the necessary component of the Armenian nation was the diaspora. And the war started in a time of not only COVID, but in an era of global social media. They were concerned not only military activities on the ground, but also the public opinion, given that they have a history of committing Armenian genocide. So this was in the calculus when they started the war. And therefore they made every effort, a significant one indeed, to hire professionals after professionals, organizations, known and unknown, that they will start a war not only against Armenia, but they will start a war in a sphere, in the arena of a public opinion against Armenian anything Armenian and everything Armenian, and every Armenian that is out there, every Armenian interest, Armenian culture, Armenian individuals, everything, those who support anything Armenian. So this thing came too close to home. And those of us on this screen perhaps are not feeling that as much. And the reason we might not be feeling as much, because most of us have established social networks, professional relationships that wouldn't care about what the particular Turkish interest has ever articulated about us, our race, our nation, or our creed. But it matters tremendously for younger generations. It matters more so for generations even younger than that, who do not have the ability to speak for themselves yet and are not even on the social media. When I'm in this country for 30 years, in the 30 years that I'm in this country, any non-Armenian that I ever met either had a good opinion about Armenians or was curious to find out who Armenians are, what do we represent, what kind of people we are. When our young generations go up, they're gonna be facing people who are bombarded with a barrage of any and all bad things can anybody say about any other human being. And the doors are not gonna be open for them. The opportunities are not gonna be there. The clients are not gonna be there. And all the other things in a life, they might not know why it's not there for them. These are issues that affect us, and more so the people on this in this Zoom conference than the younger generations, and even the children. So this is something that brought us very close to home. And this is something that is outside of the purview of any one organization. And this is only one of the issues that we have to deal with, and we have to deal on an urgent basis. Again, it's gonna be a council of organizations, and the council will decide which issues to undertake. This is one of the things that it will perhaps decide to undertake or not, but essentially it's the council's decision will be. And there are other issues. I mean, there's an issues of education that no particular organization is equipped to take upon it at the heavy lift, but all the organizations together could take that. In late 2019, both the Congress as well as the Senate passed a resolution. And that resolution reads, and it's a very short one, I'm going to just read the important part, that it is a sense of the House of Representatives, and similar one exists in the Senate, that it's the sense of the Senate of the United States, that it is the policy of the United States. 1. Commemorate the Armenian genocide through official recognition and remembrance. 2. Reject efforts to enlist, engage, or otherwise associate the United States government with denial of Armenian genocide or any other genocide. And 3. Encourage education and public understanding of the facts of the Armenian genocide, including the United States' role in the humanitarian relief effort and relevance of the Armenian genocide to modern-day crimes against humanity. Now, how many have you ever heard, other than this resolution that came, we all applauded? How many times have you heard about these resolutions from non-Armenians? In the schools in New York, I do not know about New Jersey. The Armenian genocide is not even in the public, in the curriculum. We do not And it's the policy of the United States to educate the public about Armenian genocide and about its relevance to present day, to modern day crimes against humanity. During the entire 44 days war, no non-Armenian journalist ever referenced this. This is something that the community as a whole, all of the organizations can take upon it. It's just an idea. I mean, the council itself might be the ultimate decision maker, of course. And there are other issues. Just one of them also very close to my heart I want to mention, but again, saying those doesn't mean that the council should take it, but it's something to the welfare of the entire community, to its economic strength, to its standing in an American community. And this is how we deal with an immigrant. We are all on this screen are immigrants or a descendants of immigrants. Armenians still continue to immigrate to United States from Armenia and elsewhere in the world. When I came here, when I immigrated to United States in 1991, not long after that, somebody in the hallways of the church called me a Davajan. I'm sure he had a well-meaning Armenian. And he called me that because I left Armenia at that time. And it was the cold shoulder of, it wasn't that particular instance, but mostly it was a cold shoulder from the Armenian community that let me go out of it for 25 years or so. Close to 25 years, I had no dealings with the Armenian community. And I have seen that happen not only to myself, I have seen that happen to the immigrants from Baku when they came in 1994, 1995. There's only a handful of parishioners from that immigration wave that is still praised in our churches. Few of them returned back to us, few of their children returned back to us through the professional networks. Two of them are members of the Armenian Bar Association. And I'm saddened to say that some of them have changed their names over time. And the reason is because community as a whole did not have a vision how to take those people in. It didn't have a vision, system, or place. This is something that's outside of any particular organization's capabilities. But it's something that we as a whole, as a council of organization, can talk about it. Because one day, and it might not be in too distant future, we might be the people that we might need their help. You know, one of this 22-year-old kid who was once called a traitor is the person who's addressing you now. So we do not, there are other things that I don't mean to go over and over those things that we might be able to address. But at the end of the day, it's the wisdom, humility, and experience that should be guiding force for the formation of such a council, that we can address overarching issues that will help all of us, and by extension, individual members of our communities. And I'll be happy to hear about your ideas, what the council should do and should address.
It's very ambitious, but the good news is there's precedent with the West Coast. Ideas are good, but then comes the implementation of an idea. And you mentioned social media. There is money that's going to be involved in implementing and getting our message across. How does the West Coast do this? What kind of funding do they have to affect the kind of changes they would like to impact?
There is no membership fee involved. Council itself has no authority to act over or on behalf of any of its member organizations. Its decisions are not binding, and its decisions are advisory and recommendation form only. It's governed by the consensus, and the chairmanship or chair position is on a rotating basis on every 3 months. So each organization gets to chair the council on for a period of 3 months. In terms of, there is no particular funding for that organization itself have, and none is envisioned. But what it's envisioned is that it has the, for example, with respect to the social media aspect of it, there's a tremendous amount of education that needs to go on in educating our public officials and educators about anti-Armenian discrimination and anti-Armenian sentiments, so that when they see it, they're sensitive to it. They do not dismiss it. And that can be done by organizing meetings with the decision makers at the highest level of the state government, at the federal government, and even at the local city levels. And that's how we can accomplish change, or at least sensitivize the decision makers about an issue. And this is where us standing as a unified force, the Armenian engineers, Armenian doctors, Armenian in the finance, other organizations, the churches, etc., the political parties, we will have a meaningful impact versus one organization taking that task upon itself.
To summarize, the key is you don't necessarily have to spend money. You really have to do is identify the issues, identify the players, befriend them, and offer to them the resources that we have. We'll have a pretty deep bench with engineers and lawyers and physicians, and Scott being the cheerleader. We can then cultivate those relationships and speak with them. Working with politicians, is talking enough, or would they expect donations or fundraising to support their causes to give you more of an impact? And then Scott has a question next.
It's too early to talk about that part, and this is a decision that the council itself has to make. But the idea is, at least the way I envision it, that we will never ask for money from anybody for the operation of the council. It's in terms of, we have to show that we're unified force. If we do show that we're unified force and can speak with the one voice, that has a tremendous impact and tremendous force on the politicians. When you do not have that kind of unity, the only way to get to them then is through the money. So if you have a unified community and the leaders of the community can stand together shoulder to shoulder on a particular issue to advocate on behalf of the entire community, that has a more force than any financial contributions that the particular individual can make to a particular elected representative.
I'm glad Scott and you have really helped promoted this idea. I look forward to hearing more about it, and I will share your information with the AAHPO board. We did discuss it Monday, and we didn't really know much to discuss, but now we have a lot more nice comments to make. We welcome you every week. Every 2 weeks we get together. If you have any ideas, suggestions to strengthen the program, please let me know. We do look forward to meeting again sometime soon.